Welcome back to Wealth Building for Dummies podcast. I'm your host, Renji Matthew. Today we're missing our other dummy, Kyle, but I do have a special guest for you all today. He's a seasoned entrepreneur, business owner, investor, and a personal friend of Kyle and I's. And we're so thankful that he's here to share his knowledge with us today. His name is Dublin Laguardia, but he goes by Dubs for us. So welcome, Dubs. It's great to have you on the show today. How are you doing today?
Hey, thank you for having me. Doing great.
Awesome. Tell me, background wise, what do you do and how did you get started in doing that? And you can talk, I know you do several things, so you can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, as far as background, I've been doing transportation basically all my life since I was like 14, 15 with my uncle.
Yeah.
And that's basically my main source of income, which is transportation, dispatching trucks. I've
Hmm.
never really driven them, even though I got my CDL when I was
Hmm.
20. I've driven my own trucks to like the shops and stuff like that, do a load here and there personally, like to deliver, but I never really worked them. Most of the time I just dispatched them or either
Yeah.
owned the company. I mean, I started that in 95.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1995 in the summers I used to do that. Then I worked security for a little while when I was 18, and I found out I wasn't really a good employee because I didn't like having no freedom of my schedule. People would do stuff and I couldn't do it because I had to go work, and I was like making $200 every 2 weeks. So I'm like, damn, that sucks. I'm missing out for like a couple of $100 every 2 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
back in 98, 99, minimum wage was like $5 an hour, so it wasn't much.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to just go get my CDL because I wanted to be a truck driver.
Hmm.
But my uncle switched my mind since he owned the company. My girlfriend at that time, which is my daughter's first mom, was pregnant. Uh,
Hmm.
my uncle's like, I don't want you to go on the road because you're gonna miss out on the baby and she's gonna be alone, etc. Learn how to do office work. See if you wanted to be a dispatcher, and see how that works. And he offered me $300 a week, which was a lot more than what I was making doing security at that
Yeah.
time. I thought it was a fortune. And that's basically how I got started in transportation. And just along the way, I've been doing entrepreneurship basically since I was 19. I've only
Yeah.
had two W-2 jobs in my whole life.
That's awesome.
Wendy's when I was 16
Hmm.
and security when I was 18.
That's crazy. So 19, you said, is when you started on that path.
About right about when I was turning 19 is when I
That's
just
awesome.
decided to go work as an independent dispatcher. I still worked for somebody, but I
Uh-huh.
was independent. I made my own schedule,
Hmm.
and
So you're
I
kind
got
of like
paid.
a 1099.
Yeah, I've always
Okay.
been paid 1099 all my life, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it better that way because I
Yeah.
control my time, I control my income.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, that's perfect.
most of my payments have been salary plus commission. That way, I
Hmm.
get bored if it's just the same amount of money every week. I lose interest in the job.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I like starting
Okay.
from zero every Monday. Every Monday morning, I start with zero, and I
Hmm.
got to build up my income the whole week.
Yeah,
It's up to me what I close out the week with.
yeah. That's awesome. And I know, like, we've talked about passive income before, and you do all types of investing, and we've talked about real estate before, different things like that. So, what are some of your main focuses for passive income?
Um, as far as passive income goes right now, what I got going on are some vending machines.
Hmm.
Those are pretty easy. I got a couple of my cousin has a barber shop in Miami. I got four machines right there. I have a trucking company that I used to work for many years ago as an independent contractor for them. They got like a big warehouse with mechanics and everything. I got six machines there in their driver lounge.
That's awesome.
And I just basically break off 10%, 15% to them. They restock everything and they send me the money every month. I
That's
mean, those
cool.
they don't leave a lot of money, but each one give me, I say, an average 200 to 500 bucks a month in profits after I
Mhm.
restock them and everything.
So
Which you ain't
the
gonna
the
live off of
people,
one, but when you get a volume of them, you start
yeah, yeah.
creating the income. And
That's
let me
awesome.
tell you,
So,
it's really easy to get started. People think it's hard. It's not. You just got to
yeah.
do a lot of legwork.
Yeah, setting up is the take time, but after that, so you actually pay the people wherever you store it. You pay them 10% to do
Most
the
of them
work.
that way is easier. People will be more
Yeah,
attracted to it because they're gonna get something out of it.
yeah, No, that's genius. That's a lot. That's truly passive at that point because you're not actually going and stocking it yourself, right?
I mean, I'm using their electricity. I'm
Yeah,
using the traffic basically.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we're both kind of benefiting from it.
yeah.
So yeah, I
Okay,
like cutting
awesome.
everybody. I like cutting everybody money because the more you cut people money, the more money they make for you.
Yeah, that's good advice for everyone that's listening. If you're benefiting, if it's a mutual benefit for the person you're doing business with, then they're gonna want to work with you, right?
Exactly.
So,
Everybody needs money. So
yeah,
if someone could make you 20% of a deal that you don't have nothing to do with it, that's 20 more percent that you're getting without doing nothing. You just connect with somebody.
yeah, okay, yeah,
I
and
mean,
then
that's part of the stuff I do. Like my daughter has her own bakery, basically from home. I help her
yeah,
with that. I mean, I invest in friends' businesses, and
yeah,
then they give me a cut, basically for giving them capital.
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And then I know this is something we ask everyone on the podcast. And do you go to college to do anything that you're doing right now?
Never. I dropped out actually out of high school, and I got my GED like 3 years after I dropped out because
Yeah.
supposedly I needed it. You know, I wanted to start for some company called Saddle Creek when I first got into transportation, like a big
Uh-huh.
corporation. So they wanted a high school diploma and all this other crazy. So I went, I took on my GED, but then at the end of the day, I never even went to go work for them,
Yeah.
and I don't even know where the paper's at, honestly.
So, how did you learn how to do everything? Just by experience and talking to
uh,
people, or?
I mean, it cost me money because nobody really taught me. My uncle got me into the industry, but me and
Hmm.
family, they didn't really teach me that. He threw me out there to the wolves and he told me to learn. You know, and every time
The
I made
fastest
a,
way to learn, huh?
after he closed the company down and went to work for other people where it's not as lenient as my uncle. Because when I used to mess up with my uncle, it didn't cost me
Mm,
nothing. My uncle would be like, "Hey, you messed up with this. It cost me $2,000." You know, and that's it. That's where it
mm,
stayed at. But when I went to go work, like when I went to work at MCI, I was there for 4 years. That was basically right after my uncle. That's the second company
mm,
I ever even worked for as an
hmm.
independent contractor. And there, when you messed up, you had to pay for it. And
Yeah.
trust me, I learned a lot of stuff by paying a couple of $1,000s in mistakes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
now I teach
That's a
people
quick
not to
lesson.
make those mistakes to get
Yeah,
faster up there. I mean, what I
yeah.
do right now, dispatching is the easiest thing in the world. Like,
Mm,
I make $150,000 just sitting from my garage with my 2-year-old son all day long,
yeah,
just dispatching trucks.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's easy to make $1,000 a day dispatching trucks from home.
yeah. That's awesome.
I'm
That and
starting
that.
to get a class together now where I'm going to get about 5, 10 people to come to an office in Lakeland or Tampa. Not sure we're
Hmm.
going to put them yet. And
Yeah,
then we're going to give them a little course how to start up their own dispatch service from home. Because
yeah,
all you really need is like 5 trucks, a phone, and an internet. And you can literally make $2,500 a week sitting from home for a few hours every day.
yeah. That sounds great to me for sure. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Um, if knowing everything you know now, if you could go back and talk to your younger self, what would you say and what would you do differently?
Learn more about taxes.
Yeah, that's one of our
Because
biggest expenses, right?
the part of doing the business was not the hard part. It was easy to open the business. I
Hmm.
learned the hard way in 2016 when I lost everything due to not knowing how to do my taxes and was doing them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
got tax audited. And then instead of
Mm-hmm.
getting a lawyer, I went and I wanted to be, you know, Mr. Badass with the with the IRS, and I almost got arrested for tax evasion because I wasn't really reporting them properly, like my losses, I wasn't keeping track of that. I was just putting away bank statements. That was my loss
Yeah.
in profits. When the IRS audited me, I went there with like 3 years worth of bank statements, and the lady's like, "What am I supposed to do with this?" I'm like, "Well, that's how my income and my expenses are going." She's like, "Okay, well, I'm not your bookkeeper."
Oh man, yeah, yeah. That's crazy.
So yeah, they put a tax lien on me in 2016 for $140,000, and
Uh-huh.
then I brought it down to 60,000 with one of my attorneys, but they still kept the lien on there. So that paralyzed my whole company because I worked off a factoring company, transportation,
Uh-huh.
and it halted all my income to pay my drivers. So basically, it paralyzed the whole company right in the middle of Christmas time too.
Oh
And the
man.
only way I was able to save, I wouldn't say the company itself, but to save the drivers from not getting screwed up, and I had to involuntarily go and file Chapter 10 bankruptcy, so the factoring company could release the $260,000 that they were holding that
Mm-hmm.
belonged to the drivers, basically.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to get that figured out and get out of that?
Well, I did bankruptcy in 2016. Then I decided not to open a trucking company no more. I gave up all the trucks and everything, and then I'm going. You
Mhm.
know what? I'm just going to do what the same. I mean, the margins of profits were the same as a dispatcher and
Yeah.
as a carrier owner. The only difference, when I was a carrier owner, I was responsible for the trucks, the insurance, the company's liability. As an independent contractor, as a dispatch service, I don't have no liability. I use somebody else's company. I just basically connect them. It's kind of like a real estate broker,
Mm.
but it's kind of like a loophole. Like you have wholesaling, there's a loophole around not having a real estate license. You
Yeah.
got dispatch service, which is a loophole about being a broker without having the broker license,
That's awesome.
because you're
That's a
not
good way to explain that.
you're not handling the money. As long as you don't handle the money, you don't need a broker bond or a broker authority. The carriers pay you. You don't pay the carriers. That's basically the loophole.
That's genius. Yeah, that's a good way to explain it, and especially with this podcast because we talked about wholesaling and stuff like that. So that's
Yeah.
a great way to explain it. So how long did it? When did you figure that out? Was that while you were working with your uncle and stuff?
Well, like I said, I opened my company in 2010, right after I
Uh-huh.
left MCI,
Uh-huh.
because they canceled my contract. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not. I'm Even though I'm an independent contractor, I'm just an 1099 employee. So
Yeah.
whenever they don't want my service, they just cut me off, and I'm out of business. It's not really my company. I don't run it. I
Hmm.
don't have no say in it. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, the company's under somebody else's name. I'm just an independent contractor. They don't need me. They find a different contractor to move on. That's when I decided to
Yeah.
open my own personal company where I'm basically the owner. Nobody tells me what to do. And I mean, I
That's
started that
awesome.
once I did the bankruptcy. I was like, okay, well, I just lost everything for the same amount of profit that I could have just done as a dispatcher without all this liability that I had on me.
Hmm.
So that's when I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do a dispatch service.
Yeah. Okay,
You
that
don't
makes
really need
sense.
money to start up to do a dispatch service other than some internet, a cell phone, and go out there and find a couple of carriers that want your service.
So explain that a little bit. So you're actually going out, it's kind of like door knocking at an office or something and seeing if they need the
Well,
service, or how do you?
I have one of my guys who's a truck driver, and he
Mhm.
lets me use his low boards, and I don't have to pay him nothing. He pays for the low board because he uses his too anyways. I dispatch him also. I just charge him a less percentage than I do my other guys since I
For
use his low
people that are
boards.
listening that don't know what you're talking about, explain what that means to the
Every
podcaster.
driver pays me 8% of the freight bill. So if the load pays 3 grand, I get 8% of that 3 grand for connecting them with that load. That's per
Okay.
load. There's other guy who helps me with a low board, which he doesn't charge me for. I only charge him 5%, save him 3%. But regardless, you get 8%. Each truck weekly will give you about $250 to $500 in commission. That's
Okay.
per
Okay.
truck. So I mean, on a bad week, you get 250 on a truck. So if you got two trucks, you made $500 a week. If you got a good week, you made 1,000.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Hey, that's a lot of stuff I didn't know that I just learned too.
Like right
Okay.
now, I'm
So.
running 8 guys.
Mhm.
So those 8 guys average me anywhere from 250 to $500 a week. Sometimes I have really really good weeks where I can get maybe $800 from a truck for the week. They're very rare. They happen though, but they could happen. But it's more like a 250 to $500 average, depending on the type of equipment too that you are hauling. If it's like a dry van, if it's specialized equipment, etc.
Yeah.
More specialized, bigger the pay, the more commission.
So how long, like hours per day kind of thing, how long of a work day are you putting in per week?
If you smart and you can preload your drivers like me right now, I don't have to work for the next 3 days. All my guys are already preloaded and dispatched since yesterday. So I basically
Okay.
worked 10 hours yesterday, but today, tomorrow, I don't really got much to do. Tomorrow I'll
Once
just
you
sit
have it
there
set up.
yeah, tomorrow I'll sit down there and I'll preload my guys for like Thursday when they're gonna deliver again, and I probably won't have to do nothing. Sometimes I work the business every day if transportation is bad, five, six,
Hmm.
8 hours a day. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I sit here 12 hours a day, but I try to keep it under 5 to 7 hours a day.
It's not bad at all. 5 to 7 hours a day and make
I try to
150 to
start like at
200 a
7 in the
year.
morning, 8 in the morning, and by 1:30 that I gotta go pick up my kids, I'm done. And then from there on, I go do other stuff. I get bored. I just can't stay home. I do Instacart. I'll do DoorDash. I'll do
Do all
roadie.
types of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I just go around doing different things. I'll turn on the apps, and I just don't jump at anything. But believe it or not, sometimes I've opened like Instacart app the other days. I opened it. There was a batch for $140. Took me an hour and a half to shop it and deliver it. So I just made $140 in an hour and a half. And while I
Hmm.
was at it, I bought milk and cereal and stuff that I needed for the kids, anyways.
Yeah,
So they paid
you're
me
making money
$140 to do
doing
my shopping too.
exactly. You're doing stuff that you need to do, but you're making
I
money
mean,
doing it at the
like
same time.
sometimes I take my kids out to SeaWorld or out to Orlando, and believe it or not, I've gotten like a whole batch to pay 70, $80 to go shop it and take it out that way. So someone just pay my gas to go over there. I just
Yeah,
find some way to cover all my stuff without it coming out of my pocket.
that's what entrepreneurship is, right? Just to figure, especially like you
I
mentioned,
figure
taxes.
what my expenses are and what I have to do every month to cover
Hmm.
each expense.
That's awesome. And then everything else is gravy, right?
Yeah. On top of that, I also like got land. I flip lands. I got a lot of lands that I sell, and I do a lot
Hmm.
of like the seller financing. So
Okay.
I like that. You get a lot of good passive income on seller financing. Right now, I
Hmm.
get like about $4,000 a month, which is what paying my rent and my mom's rent off of 3 lands that I sold.
Yeah.
For the next two
No,
years,
that's
the guys are paying me monthly.
yeah. No, that's awesome. That's something else we've talked about on the podcast, seller financing and different things like that. So when it comes to real estate, what all do you do in the real estate field?
I haven't really gotten into like the house stuff, but I've bought mobile homes, made some good
Yep.
money into those. But they were older mobile homes. When Hurricane Ian came by out there, they took off 4 of them out,
Oh man.
and the insurance wasn't worth on those mobile homes because the insurance was more than what the mobile homes were actually even worth. I bought these mobile
Okay.
homes for like $7,000. They're like small ones, like 1 bedroom ones. So I
Okay.
used to just make like $300 or $400 a month off of them. But it was a little passive income. When Hurricane came in, I took them off. One of them was on his own land. That's one of the
Okay.
lands that I sold. I had bought that land for like 10 grand, and I sold it for 50. And I
That's
sold it
awesome.
on a 3 year seller plan. The guy's been paying me. I forgot how much it was. Like $25,000, $30,000 he gave me for a down payment, and then
Yeah.
everything else has been like 1,000 something every month for the next 3 years. I still got like one more year left with him.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah,
So you have a lot of
You
seller
just go to the
finance.
county. It's easy to find land. You go on the counties. Like
Hmm.
every county has their own tax auction deed area, and
Yep.
that's basically where I find the land. Like the one in Punta Gorda, I paid 3 grand for it. I sold it for 20.
That was going to be my next question. Where do you find these deals? So there
Yeah,
you
in the
go for everyone
counties,
listening.
any county you want to go. If you want Lee County, you want Dade County, you just go there and look for tax auctions
Hmm.
and find tax deeds.
Hey, there you go, guys.
And
For everyone
you can
that's
find
listening.
good acreage out there. Now, if
Yeah.
you're buying in Southwest Florida, be careful with Gulf tortoises and burrowing owls. They cost about $8,000 per animal to remove, plus permits. They're endangered species. You just can't get rid of them. You can't use the land if you got them on there. And I know from experience, I lost $40,000 in a deal because of one.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy. So I'm guessing every state there will be different things you have to watch out for, but that's the easiest way to find those deals is by going
At
through
least in
state.
Florida, yeah, you used to go through every county. I haven't really
Hmm.
explored out there, but most of the states out there are about the same thing. They're usually
Yeah,
in the clerks of courts is usually who keeps all that record.
that
I
makes
know they
sense.
vary from state to state, but most of the states are out there. I think Texas is the same way to do the clerks, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. So it's
I
Georgia.
believe it's the same. It's the same way you find
But if not,
properties you
you can
can too.
always Google the state and tax
Yeah,
auction, and you definitely get to where you gotta go.
exactly. Google can solve a lot of the problems for you
If it's
there.
not a Google, it's not real.
Well, let me ask you this, Dubs. What's one of your biggest failures, and what did you learn from that?
The biggest failure, like I said, was I would say the tax part. That
Mhm.
you know, it caught me off guard.
Yeah,
And the other thing that I would say is don't self gratify too fast because you could downfall real fast. trust me
Yep.
from experience. That's the other thing that kind of killed me in 2016 on the side of the tax lien. I had an overhead over 100,000
Mm.
a month basically, so I had to come up every month with $100,000 just to break even. Then anything after 100,000, that was the extra profit.
Yeah, that's crazy. 100,000 and being so young
Yeah,
too.
because I decided to just my credit had shot up to like 850 at that time.
Yeah,
So I would just walk in anywhere and I like that car, and they literally just let me sign and drive. So I ended up with like 24 cars.
because your credit was so good. It's
Every
funny.
time I went out of town, we rented a car. I'm like, oh, I like this car. I used to just go to the dealer the next time and boom, buy it. And next thing you know, I had like 24 cars, and
Oh my
it's
goodness.
not cheap paying 24 cars, 24 insurances in Florida.
Oh my goodness. How long ago was this?
That's started getting cars in 2014. By 2016, that I did the bankruptcy, I had to return 25 out of 26 cars. They only let me keep a little minivan that was paid for. It was the
Yeah,
cheapest car of all of them. I mean, I had them all: Ferraris, Lambo, Maseratis, Mercedes.
that's
I had a
crazy.
collection of Maximas. I had like 5 Maximas because
That's
I liked
crazy.
them in different colors. So I went and bought different colors.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And
I
most of
mean, when
them I
you have
never
the
really
money.
drove that much, to tell you the truth. I was just paying to have cars sit in a parking lot. I mean, the
I mean,
Ferrari, I think if I put like 300 miles on that car, is too much. I had it for like a year, and I drove it maybe 5 times.
yeah, that's crazy.
It was too many cars. I didn't really have time to drive them all. I had
How
them
about,
scattered around. I had some in North Carolina, some in Orlando, some in Miami.
yeah, how about
Because my
now? How
company, I
many?
had it based in North Carolina because it was
Okay.
cheaper for the truck insurance than Florida. Even
Hmm.
though I was getting hit with state taxes, it was still cheaper to pay state taxes than Florida insurance.
That makes sense.
Yeah, North Carolina is an income state tax, unlike
Okay,
Florida has no income tax. But it
that
was still
makes
cheaper
sense.
to pay the taxes
Yeah,
than it was to do the insurance in Florida. It still probably is because Florida's insurance is terrible right now.
I think a lot of the coastal states I've heard insurance has been crazy. I mean, it's
Problem
getting
here
bad
is
everywhere.
too much fraud in Florida. That's what rise has the rise of
Mm,
insurance so high. It's the amount
okay,
of loss that they give the insurance out here, especially in
okay.
freight. There's a lot of freight theft in Florida. So when it
Really?
comes to
Okay.
Florida, in fact, there's a lot of insurance they have to pull out of Florida. I think right now for truck carriers, we got maybe 3 or 4 willing
Mm,
to insure you. So when you only got 3 or 4, the competition's not big, so the prices are high. You don't have many choices.
that makes sense. There's not enough competition, so everything's gone up. Yeah, I've heard. I've actually that's not just in freight insurance, but I've heard like home, auto,
Houses
everything.
too,
Yeah,
yeah.
everything's gone up.
Houses too. They're going higher because there's less companies wanting to insure the
Yeah,
state of Florida.
yeah. There's a lot less. A lot of companies are pulling out of every state, from what I understand.
Yep.
It's just the big ones that stick around, and some that I can
Yeah,
stay
like
around. They
Progressive
do.
does a lot of trucking, but Progressive is
Uh-huh.
abusive when it comes to like a trucking rate. I mean,
Mm,
basically, you're just gonna work your truck to pay Progressive, basically.
that's crazy. Well, that kind of, I guess, answers my next question because I was going to ask, what is your biggest challenge you're facing right now in your role in business, and how are you tackling that?
Transportation right now is real bad for many reasons. I mean, the economy is not doing great. We don't have a great leadership, so
Mhm.
that's why transportation was booming during Trump. He started running the country as a business, which kind of opened the freight industry more. We had the oil running, which
Mhm.
is a big part of the freight movement. You got pipes, you got all this stuff that moves that all of a sudden just stopped when Biden came in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And all that stuff was kind of like booming the economy because now more people were building, more pipelines were moving, more lands being acquired, more people doing construction because there's more work coming out to these workplaces because of the oil fields. They pay really good, so that brings people to go live there, which brings construction up to build housing because there's nothing in the middle of Midland, Texas, or out there where all that oil is at.
Yeah,
You know, all that starts bringing different sectors of transportation, bringing up because once you bring the construction, you bring the stores. Now you got to bring in the all the supplies, the food,
Yeah, more
everyday
income
life
into the
materials.
economy.
So
Yeah,
when you cut that off, you just cut off the whole supply chain.
yeah, that takes away jobs and income into the funding
So
the
right now, the
economy
only thing
pretty
that
much.
kind of moves, that pays anything to move, is the essential stuff, because Walmart's not worried about $100,000 worth of office shares, because they probably still got a bunch of them in the back. So they're
Yeah,
not trying to pay top dollars to move office shares, because it's just going to sit in their warehouse for the next year.
yeah, yeah. There's leadership has a lot to do with how things can happen, and that's true in business, in the country, everything, right?
Yep.
Um,
And I mean, transportation is basically the backbone of America. It's what keeps America moving. So when that slows down, everything else slows down.
yeah, yeah. That's why everything was
That and
costing so much.
inflation is also a big deal, being the
Hmm.
fact that now it's costing more to transport this stuff. So now this has to come back. At the end of the day, it all comes back to the consumer. These big companies are not losing any dollars, because now what we used to charge maybe $2 per mile to move, they're going to fuel so high. That's another thing that helped while Trump. The fuel was so low that we could charge less per mile to transport the freight, that what we have to do right now, that the fuel is like $3 or $4 a gallon.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, it eats up into the profits.
Yeah, that's why
So
everything's costing
the
more.
transportation company is not going to eat up their profit. What they're going to do, they're going to raise up that rate. Then Kellogg's is not going to eat that negative part either. What they're going to do, they're going to raise the cereal now extra dollar to take out that extra price.
Yeah, they take it out on the consumer. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then you got the middleman, who's the broker, who's killing the industry as well, who's taking a bigger cut since it's not regulated.
yeah,
Unlike like real estate brokers, the real estates are regulated at cap a certain percent, so
yeah.
what, 6% or something like that. You don't have that in freight brokers. So there's brokers out there getting the
Mm,
freight, and then on top of that, cutting it off 50, 60, 70% and giving peanuts to the carrier.
that's crazy. Yeah, I can imagine why it's so. That's why you like the dispatcher side a lot more because you're not having to
Yeah.
deal with any of those expenses, right?
I don't have to deal with none of that. I basically just connect the
Connect
driver with the
people
load. If it makes sense for him where he makes a profit, I get paid the clean 8% just for giving him that load.
or just connecting people. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
You're
My
doing
drivers average about 10 $12,000 every week. Between 8 and 12,000 every week is every truck. I get 8% of that money.
okay. That's that's you're doing pretty much wholesaling in the trucking side. That's awesome.
Basically.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
a lot of the drivers that I have done, the reason they even work with me is because they don't even know English, so it's harder for them to communicate with the shipper and with the
okay.
brokers. I mean, I got a couple of guys that are fluent in English, but they just don't like the paperwork, because there's a lot of paperwork involved when you're doing the loads. You got to do the contract, the rate confirmation, the follow up. So a lot of these guys don't want to drive and do the paperwork, so they're
Yeah.
willing to pay me a percentage just for me to get them the loads.
Okay.
This way, they can drive and sleep and deliver. They don't have to worry after they drop the load. Okay, well, I got to build this load now. I got to sit here and do accounting for myself.
So they just
They're
have they can
all
just do
basically
the job.
small companies. They like one, two truck guys,
Yeah.
so they don't really have like a big operation. Someone with like a big operation doesn't really gonna use my service. It's too expensive for them.
Okay.
It's cheaper for someone like MCI Express. It's cheaper for them to hire in-house dispatchers. Which, don't get me wrong, they still pay good. I mean, if you don't want to work on commission because you don't want to start from zero, because some people hate. Some people
Hmm.
want to feel comfortable and know how much they're gonna get every week. I know my cousin's like that. He can work off commission, but he works for a company because he's comfortable. He makes X amount of money every week, so he knows
Hmm.
he doesn't have to worry. As long as he shows up those 5 days a week, he gets that money on Friday.
So
He
would you
feels more comfortable.
is that something you would recommend for someone that's not in the field? Like go work for someone first, learn it, and then do it yourself?
Definitely, unless you have some sort of other income
Yeah.
and you just want to learn this on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, because I mean, it'll fluctuate. I could have a week that I make $10,000. I could have a week that I make 1,000. I mean, and I've been doing it for 26 years, and I
Mhm.
still have bad weeks. So when you don't know what you're doing, you're first getting started. You only got maybe one or two trucks. Because the hardest part about it's like in any career, getting started is when you don't have experience, people are scared to use you.
Yeah, that makes
because whatever you
total
do can
sense.
cost the company money too. So if you
Exactly.
don't have the experience, but when you already go out there and you work for a company as a salary, I say
Mhm.
go try it. Do it for 6 months, a year, get at least a year under the belt. Start meeting drivers, start learning the lanes and the regions and the different equipment, and then jump on it. I mean, just get the free lessons.
That makes
I mean, you
sense.
can
Yeah.
pay me to teach you. I could teach you the same thing,
I was gonna
but I
say
charge
that's,
three thousand. I
or they
charge
could come
three
to
thousand
you.
dollars a course for
Yeah.
30 days in the office. My course is not going to be. I don't do my courses are not like a book or. I'm not
Hmm.
going to give you a book to read and take a test. I'm going to bring you into the office. I'm going to give you 5 real trucks. We're
Hmm.
going to sit with you there. You're going to learn how to dispatch them, how to problem solve, because
Hands-on
that's the
training.
best way to learn. Because a lot of things happen in transportation fast. You're not going to read it in a book. It's hands on. It could be all good for right now. In 2 hours, all hell break loose.
Yeah, it's all hands-on training.
So
That's hey,
it
that's really good.
it teaches them not only how to dispatch them, how to handle the stress, because there is a lot of stress when it comes to transportation.
Hmm.
Anything you do is going to cost the company money, and it'll
Yeah,
cost you
makes
money.
total sense.
You know, not only that, you got to know the hours. You got to be. It's like a lot of things that they combine together. Drivers have certain hours they can only drive per day, per week. There's certain weight limits that you can carry on a truck without needing permits. There's a lot of it's more of the regulations that you got to learn. That it's easier to learn if you're an employee, because
Yeah,
if you mess up, it's not really going to cost you that much. I mean,
yeah,
even though some companies will charge you, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot easier than when you're gonna go out there and all of a sudden your rent is paying due next week, and all of a sudden you ain't getting paid because you messed up somebody's
you
payment.
messed up something. That makes sense.
Yeah, at least if you work for somebody, you could tell me, hey, take off $200 on my paycheck every week, and
Yeah,
they'll
yeah, that
work
makes
with you.
sense. Man, that's I didn't even think about that. That's crazy to think about.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, now like I said, if you have other income or you already have a job and you could do this on the side, this is something that you have to do during the day, because nighttime transportation, it's only like a 3PL stuff. Those are like, that's a whole different divisions kind of deal, which
Okay.
that's another way to go learn the basics of trucking. It's not over the road, which is like a company like Saddle Creek. They do what's called third party logistics. They basically own the warehouses, and then Walmart, Home Depot stores all the stuff there, and they distribute around for them with their own trucks. So you're
Okay.
not really booking your own freight, you're just distributing the freight, which
Okay.
pays really good too if you get into it. Saddle Creek, it starts like about 60 grand a year or something like that
Okay.
for a logistics coordinator. They pay like $25-$30 an hour.
That's that's not bad.
Yeah,
Six.
transportation managers get paid over 100,000 there.
Okay.
And you get all the benefits. They're a real big company to start with too. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
They're up here in Lakeland. They got different areas, but the big office up here in Lakeland.
Okay. So, in your opinion, Dubs, what is the most important personality trait that someone would need to do what you're doing?
Well, if you're gonna do it like I'm doing it from home,
Uh,
self discipline,
yeah.
because
If you
you
don't
gotta.
have that,
I
it can
treat it
break
like
apart.
a regular job. I start at 7 and I finish at 7. I don't treat it like, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep at 2 in the afternoon. Even though sometimes I do take a nap because I got nothing else to do, but I try to keep myself busy. I mean, I've created one thing that some guy taught me a long time ago. He goes, you got 168 hours in a week. Try to create an income that's equal to $30 an hour for 168 hours. That way, you even get paid when you sleep. And he
Mm,
goes, combine that with regular income and passive income. Passive income covers your sleep hours, and your work income covers your work hours.
that's a good way to, good mindset to have. That's awesome. Yeah,
He's like, at
self-discipline
$30
is,
an hour, 168, you're guaranteed to make over $5,000 every week.
yeah, that's plenty of income for sure.
So
Yeah,
that was always stuck to my head that I have when people tell me, "Oh, I don't have time." That's why I'm like, "What do you mean you don't have time? We have 168 hours. Even if you work 40 hours a week and sleep 40 hours a week, you still got half those time left."
yeah. Hey, that's a good way to put that. I've
I
never
used to
thought of it
say the
that
same
way.
thing. Oh, I don't got time. Oh, I don't have time for this. And that's when he told me, "You don't have time because you don't know how to manage time.
Mm,
You waste time."
that's gonna hit hard for a lot of people that are listening to this right now.
And I used to waste a lot of time because instead of going and figure out how I'm going to make money this hour, I would just go hang out.
Yeah, but now
I'll
you
go
figured
watch
out.
TV.
Yeah,
I'll go watch TV. I'll go watch a TV show. I'll go play Xbox. I haven't watched TV or play Xbox. I don't know how many years. There's like one TV in my house, and my son watches Cocomelon all day long. That's all you see on that TV. Nobody here watches TV. None of my kids watch TV. They're always like doing something else. I'm
that's
teaching all
awesome.
my kids to do their own business. I don't want none of them to be an employee unless they want to be like a doctor or like a lawyer or something in that nature. I
Yeah,
tell them you don't need school for everything else. But now, if you want to be a surgeon, you want to be a doctor, yeah, let's go to school. I'll pay for your school. I'm not paying your school to go be a business owner. I
we
can teach you
learned
that.
that. Yeah, that's awesome. So, what is your why, Dubs? What makes you keep going? Like, what's your reason to keep doing what you're doing and everything? And
My reasons,
you
well,
can,
basically, my kids, basically, number one, like I want my kids to have a role model. So if I just sit home and do nothing, that's what they're gonna think. That's what life is.
yeah.
See, my daughter at first, she didn't want to be an entrepreneur. She wanted to go to work at Walmart. 3 months later, she said, "Daddy, I want to do what you do because I want to have time. They don't give me time. They're rude to me. They treat me like crap, and they don't pay me much."
Hmm.
I'm like, "Well, good. What do you want to do?" She goes, "I want to start baking stuff. I want to do like specialized gourmet stuff." Perfect. She's down there in Miami now. She sells people $30 for 6 cookies,
That's
gourmet
awesome.
cookies.
How old was
And
she
people
when
are
she
actually paying
started?
for it.
Yeah, how old was she when she started doing that?
20, 21, yeah, 20.
Yeah,
20 turning 21. She's turning 23 now. She's been doing it for about a year right now.
that's awesome. Man,
She
I'm
started in
talking
North
to,
Carolina, and now
uh
she moved to Miami. And she continued in Miami, and people are actually paying her more money in Miami than were in North Carolina.
that's
The only
crazy.
reason she made a lot of money in North Carolina because she was doing like a lot of the Hispanic sweets like flan and stuff like that, and you don't have that in North Carolina, so they were paying her $20 for a flan that cost her like $4 to make.
That's- Man, that's awesome. I'm sure you're so proud of her. Like
Yeah.
it's
That plus
awesome to
she also picks up like furnitures and stuff like that through like
uh-huh.
Facebook Marketplace, and
Hmm.
her husband kind of like restore it, paint it, clean it up,
With it.
and they build something out of it. Like he built these bedroom set. It was an old bedroom set. He got it for free,
Uh-huh.
and he sanded it all down and he painted it into Lego colors. He added like Lego things in the front of the drawers. He just sold the whole set for $1,000.
That's awesome. So he's
And
flipping
I
furniture.
think the kid spent like about him and my daughter spent like about $100 in material just to build it.
That's great. That's yeah. It excites me whenever I talk to people and these kids are starting up so much earlier than I ever did, and I'm hopeful for our future, right? Because when you talk to
Yeah.
people like that, it's good to know it's okay. We're gonna be fine.
Well, in Florida, I don't know if you heard, in Florida, DeSantis started a new law now where they're going to teach kids in school taxes, real estate,
Man, that's awesome.
investment. He's making it mandatory
See,
for
I
kids in the
wish,
school. I don't know about other states, but Florida, DeSantis just signed that bill last year.
yeah.
I think next school year it starts where they're going to teach the kids how to work taxes, how to invest in real estate and in the stock market, you know,
Yeah.
which is basically what they got to teach kids.
Yeah, I wish they did that everywhere because like you don't taxes is like you said one of the biggest things that
I
I
didn't learn
wish
that. That's
everyone
why I
knew.
got messed up.
Yeah, yeah, and if everyone taught that in school, you people will be so well off starting out and stuff if they learn the ways to navigate through taxes and stuff like
Hey,
that.
I
So that's
also follow our buddy Will Myers. I mean, I
yeah,
learned so much crazy stuff with Will. I love Will.
yeah,
He's
no,
taught me so much stuff about taxes and investment that I didn't even know.
yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, Dubs, I don't want to take up too much time. So, what's one question you wish I would have asked you that you would, that I didn't ask you?
No, I think we cover pretty much a lot of the stuff that I do. Basically, I
Okay.
mean, like I tell everybody, my main business, always keep one main business. Don't go crazy doing everything. The only reason I do multiple things now is because I've been doing transportation 26 years. I built that. I started doing different things like maybe 5, 6 years ago. I haven't been doing different things 26 years. I've been
That's a
doing
great
transportation
point.
most of it because if you don't focus on one thing, you're never gonna make money because you're never gonna finish something.
Hmm.
You need one big income, then use that income to start building another one. Then use those two incomes to build a third one, and down the line, 5, 7 years later, you'll have 7, 9, 10 sources of income. Then you relax.
That's a great
But
point,
if
and
you're all over
that's
the place, you're all over the place at the beginning. You're not gonna make any money. Nobody's gonna recognize you because nobody's gonna know what you do. See,
shiny
everybody comes to
object.
me as transportation. Even
Hmm.
though I do multiple stuff, the
Hmm.
number one thing when people hear about me, send transportation. I do life insurance too, but nobody sends me like, oh, I forgot you did that. I always see you as a transportation person,
Yeah,
but I do that too. I forgot, but I'll send you the next one. Just create one that gives you the most money, and then everything else will fall in place.
yeah. No, that's a
Everything else is
great.
just investments and ventures that you're gonna do when you get tired of what you're doing. Main thing.
Yeah, it's more creating wealth for later. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great point because that's something we've talked about in the past. Is something I did wrong. Like I would try to do so many things. It's the shiny object syndrome, right? You try to
Yeah.
jump into so many things, and then
Oh,
everything
I
falls.
did the same thing. I
Yeah,
was all over the place at one point,
I think
and
all
I wasn't
entrepreneurs do
getting
that.
anywhere because I never grew anything far enough to grow to make
Hmm.
it go somewhere until I concentrated in transportation, and I went from one truck to 160 trucks in 1 year.
Mm,
Then I had built something.
yeah,
But at the
that's awesome.
beginning, I was trying to do everything at the same time, inside like the transportation industry.
Yeah.
I wanted to do everything at once, and it wasn't really working out. Yeah, I have good weeks, but it wasn't really working out. It wasn't consistent.
Yeah, you make
It
good
was too
income
much
from one
stuff for
thing.
one person to keep up, and then if you don't have
Exactly.
the funds to pay the people to keep up with that,
Yeah.
then it's just gonna fail because you're not gonna
Hmm.
give the people the service, and nobody's gonna. No, don't call Reggie. He took 6 weeks to fix my problem. He's too busy.
Yeah.
So why build a bad reputation? Wait till you're ready to have a team
Yeah.
to bring in to take all the weight off of you.
Yeah. To really
There's
make
only
it
so
past
much
you.
one person can do alone.
Exactly. Yeah. Focus on that one thing that makes you the income. Now, once you're making good income, use that to invest into other things.
Exactly.
Great advice for
And I
people that
say
are listening.
build a team because you're never gonna get rich by yourself. Look for
Exactly.
people that. So if you're stuck at sale, find a guy who's a real good salesman and link up with him, connect with him, give him a cut of the deal, and have him go look for customers. That's what I do with my transportation.
Hmm.
I think I'm not as good in sales. I can do sales. I hate it. I really hate sales. I hate doing door knocks. I hate going to sit down and trying to convince somebody to use my company. What did I do? My good friend of like 16 years, he's been a truck driver, salesperson, like a freight salesperson for
Mm,
40 years. He has connections. He has a book of business. I cut him off my 8%, 50% for all the customers he sent me.
that's awesome.
He
Hey,
makes 4% by just sending me a customer. I'm still making 4% off the truck,
yeah,
and I'm not having to do the sales pitch. I don't have to sit down. I don't have to convince nobody. He deals with everything. All I'm doing is getting the work from him, passing it to my driver. I'm splitting the 50-50 with him. He's happy. I'm happy. We're both making good money.
you've truly figured out how to make it where you don't have to do as much work and make as much money or more. That's that's a great.
Exactly.
Um,
I try
well,
to I try to see, okay, if I could make 30% doing this, and I could make $100,000 a year at 30%, I'll give up half of that to get somebody else to do the job because I still made 15% of that $100,000 without doing much.
yeah, that makes total sense. And that if you
It
do
just
that
built
enough,
volume.
yeah, it's enough volume, and then you're getting a small cut of so many things that it's not a big deal anymore. Now you're helping other
And,
people make income too.
and you don't really have much of the liabilities because everybody else is doing their own stuff. You're just getting a cut. The worst thing that
Exactly.
can happen is that deal breaks through and you don't get that cut anymore and find another one.
Exactly. Well, Dubs, what would be the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice, other than the one of the we have 168 hours in a week,
Hmm.
if someone can do, if anybody else can do it, is humanly able to be duplicated. So just because someone else does it, don't believe you can't do it. Because if they can do it, you can duplicate it.
Yeah.
And actually, I learned that from some criminal on YouTube. I ain't gonna lie. He scammed Atlantic City over $5 million on a coin
Oh my
with
goodness,
fake coins.
that's
And he
crazy.
said that the coins were human made. So if he could figure out what the machine read, he could duplicate that coin because if it's humanly made, it could be duplicated.
Yeah,
And that
that's
stuck in
crazy.
my mind. Oh, I go, if someone else can do it, then if it
I
can be
can do it.
duplicated.
Yeah,
If it's made by man, it can be duplicated by anybody who can actually get to it and learn how to do it.
yeah. Now, let me ask you the opposite of that. What's the worst advice you've ever gotten?
Worst advice? I mean, I get a lot of bad advice. I just don't really listen to much of them.
There you go. That's a great answer.
I mean, I have tons of bad advice to people. I've just never really followed through with none of them. I mean,
Yeah,
most of them have been illegal advices too. But yeah, when you're in transportation, you get, trust me, I've been offered to bring Mexican people across the borders. I've been offered to see if I want to use my trucks to transport drugs with tons of money. These are random people that just contact you.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
buddies of mine, oh yeah, let's do it because I've been doing it. No, so
Yeah.
I'm good. Most of them are in jail anyways.
Yeah. That's
That's
crazy.
I just try to stay away. If it's something I don't feel like is going to be good, I mean, I just try to stay away.
Yeah.
Even though some people fall into temptation, I've always fought temptation.
That's great. Because
Fast
like
money's not good money, trust me.
exactly
I know
keeps
from
us in trouble.
experience from family members of mine that are still doing time for trying to make some quick buck.
Yeah.
There's no
No, this
such,
makes
there's
sense.
no shortcuts, trust me. It's all hard work. There's no shortcut.
Well, Dubs,
I
where
wish
can
there were. The shortcut is hard work.
yeah, right? The shortcut is the hard work. Yeah, because
I
if
mean,
you do
I'm
more
not
work
doing
up
nothing.
front,
I'm not doing nothing special. Just
yeah,
I get up every day at 3:45 in the morning. I go to sleep every day at 11. That's all
that's
I do.
crazy.
I outwork everybody else. When people are getting home at 6, wanting to relax, I'm out there trying to see how I could figure 20, 30, 40 more dollars, $100, $1,000 more dollars.
Yeah. Man, that's great. Great mindset to have, especially if you're wanting to build something big for your kids and future generations. Well, Dubs, where can people find you if they wanted to get into what you're doing or learn from you or get into your course? How can they find you?
Well, they can go to my website, what is it,
Okay.
transparencybrokerage.com, or they can find me on TikTok, the Freight Doctor, DA
Okay.
Freight Doctor.
Okay. And
And
I'll
that's
have these.
mostly where I'm at on TikTok. I'm not really too much on Instagram, even though my Instagram's the same, the Freight Doctor.
Okay.
But I get more messages off of TikTok than I do off of Instagram.
Okay.
Not big into social media.
hmm So it would be better
I
to
use it a little
get
bit,
on the
but not too
website.
big into social media. But
Yeah.
yeah, the website has all my information, phone number, has what we do. That's the brokerage company that we're about to get launched pretty soon. Actually,
Okay.
me,
Makes sense.
Kyle, and one of his buddies, we're about to launch
Mhm.
that company pretty soon,
Okay.
which is something to help the transportation industry. There's a lot of fraud going on.
Mm.
So we're basically aiming at trying to, first of all, take away the middleman, which is the broker who's taking the big chunk, and just connect the direct shipper with the carrier and kill the middleman. Now they can negotiate directly
And make more money
and
too.
make more money.
Okay. And for the listeners, we'll have those the ways to contact him on the screen. But yeah, thank you, Dubs, for joining us today. And I'm sure this provided a lot of value for people that didn't know. I didn't know about a lot of things there that I'm sure a lot of people got to learn from. So, anything you want to end us off with before I close out?
I mean, just outwork your competition. I
hmm
mean, you've never really made it. Believe me, I thought I made it when I saw over $1 million in my bank account, and that went away faster than a cake in front of a fat kid. I mean, it was a short-lived dream. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's not hard to become a millionaire. The hardest part, I would say, everybody is maintaining the status.
hmm
Any little thing will. I mean, making $1 million in today's generation is so much easier than our grandparents. I
hmm
mean, you can go on TikTok right now and all of a sudden just go viral and become a millionaire overnight. The problem is, can you keep enough content to keep the status?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Because once you get $1 million, people see $1 million and be like, oh, especially when you've never had it. I mean, I know I've seen it, I've never had it before, and I felt like I was LeBron James there for a minute. I thought I was like Bill Gates or something, and I
Yeah.
realized it sucks unless it's passively coming in. It's never going to stop. It's going to go away.
Yeah. Passive it will
If you still
keep
got to
coming.
get up and work for it, you haven't made it.
Yeah, no, that's why we love talking about passive income on this show. Because, like you said, if you're actively doing it, you're going to have to actively keep doing it. But if you can make
Once
it
you stop
passive,
doing it, you don't have the income.
exactly. So if something happens to you, there you go. There goes that income. So if you can make it passive, then you don't have to worry about that. So,
And even passive, you gotta maintain it because if you don't maintain it, it's gonna go away too. Because if you don't
yeah,
take care of it, it'll go away.
yeah, yeah,
You gotta keep up with everything in life.
yeah.
And
Well,
people think that when you get money and you have, oh, he doesn't work that much. People work, they just work different ways.
yeah, that makes sense. Well, Dubs, thank you so much for coming today and sharing all your info. For everyone that's listening, thank you for listening on the Wealth Building for Dummies today. I am one of the dummies. Until next time, we'll see you guys on the next episode for Wealth Building for Dummies podcast. Thank you, guys.